Hi, I'm Jack Teeling. I'm the founder and managing director of the Teeling Whiskey Company.
In 2012, Jack Teeling and his brother Stephen became the first whiskey makers to establish a distillery in Dublin in more than 125 years. In 2015, the new Teeling Whiskey Distillery was opened in the Liberties, just down the road from where the original family distillery once stood as far back as 1782. Jack Teeling, founder and chief executive, won the top prize in the emerging category of the EY Entrepreneur of the Year Awards in 2017.
So I was born and raised in Dublin City, just in the suburbs of Clontarf. I'm still living there, our family has a long association with Dublin City in particular, and we've moved slowly out of the city over the last number of generations, and we've got to Dublin 3 from Dublin 1 and 2. I've spent my life there. I've grown up there. I'm raising my children there. I'm lucky to have 3 beautiful daughters who keep me busy. It was during my time growing up in Clontarf that I got my first exposure to whiskey. So my father set up a whiskey company in the 80s called Cooley Distillery. It was the first new distillery in Ireland over 100 years, breaking a monopoly of Irish distillers, so one company that was controlling the whole industry. People thought he was mad at the time. He probably was and probably still is. But I grew up around the kitchen table with a lot of let's say, entrepreneurial ventures, whiskey being one of them, a couple of other ones as well. It imparted a desire myself to do something, to build something myself and to put my own mark on it. And it took me quite a while to get there, and I ended up working with my father, even though I said I never would, because we're very similar. But I suppose the opportunity came up, a unique opportunity did, and I learned a lot. But after 10 years of working with him, I definitely felt it was the time to step away and to put my own mark and set up my own venture. I got to travel quite a bit in my first employment. I traveled all over the world trying to develop Irish whiskey with some success, a lot of failures, but it was from, to be honest with you, leaving our little rock in the middle of the Atlantic and going internationally and seeing what was happening, seeing trends and seeing what people were enjoying in bars. I got exposed to a lot of different ideas. So what I like to say, and what I would say to anyone who's looking to set up their own business, is that no matter what, okay, you could be a student in university, you could be a manager in a company, or you could be an entrepreneur out there doing it. You have to be open, you have to be looking, and if you're not open, well then they're just going to bounce off you. So when you go on your holidays, when you go traveling with your business, or you're in a bar, you're in a shop, you're online, that's the time you should be looking for opportunities and looking and seeing things. And sometimes you don't have to necessarily come up with something that is totally unique. You can find something, for example, in a different industry that you go, wow, that's pretty cool, and then apply it to your own industry. I would implore everyone to have that open mindset because you never know when some of those ideas or some of those little nuggets that you pick up along your way can be called on. I always wanted to do something myself. It was something that I felt I was good at managing downwards, but not managing upwards. I like to be able to control what I was judged on, and you know, I wasn't very good at taking direction. But those first couple of years, it was so, you know, it was like a breath of fresh air. It was so much fun, you know, molding and seeing it evolve and hiring the people and paying people's wages and doing that during you know, recession as well felt so much more meaningful, in that just we were doing something positive in a time that was so negative. Where we found the site to build a distillery, you know, if it wasn't during a recession, we would never be able to afford to buy it. So it allowed us to do a lot of different things and get out ahead of, you know, the recovery that thankfully came a couple of years later, and allowed us to kickstart also development in an area of Dublin that had been starving of investment for a long time. And we were the first crane in Dublin city, I think, nearly since the recession hit back in the 2009, 2010, which again, for me, felt great. So this is our brand home. This was an experience where we wanted people to be able to come in and experience firsthand real manufacturing. So, you know, a real distillery in a real location where whiskey has traditionally been made. But while doing that, do it in a modern way. So we're respectful to the history of the area. We're respectful to the Liberties. We're respectful to the people who lived and worked here, but we wanted to do something that represented modern Dublin. So we build a modern facade, but use traditional materials. So the bricks, the type of materials that we use, was a combination of old and new. And then coming into the distillery, the experience is actually walking through how you make whiskey. And then also, you know, the tasting element is how we make our whiskey different, because to be, let's say, a successful brand within our space, you have to have a functionally different product. So it has to taste different. And we focus on over-engineering our proposition in terms of the quality of the liquid, and that when you had a couple of different products sitting at the bar, a couple of different whiskeys, ours stood out because it was different, had a different taste profile. It's very easy to get caught up building a very complex financial model or, you know, business proposal. You know, you can sit behind a computer and do all this sort of stuff. But reality is, you know, what's worked for me and what, you know, I find is required is you got to start. You got to get moving. You got to move forward. You got to start somewhere, because reality is the idea that you probably start off with is not going to be the reality of what you end up with. And you'll only learn that by getting out there and doing it. And also, you know, today's world, you know, opportunities evolve and can disappear very, very quickly. And you have to be able to get out there quickly and grasp it. So we're lucky, we're a small, nimble organization. And when you're dealing against large multinationals, which a lot of new startups will be, being small and nimble, that's your USP. That's what you have. You know, the big companies, they have to, you know, tick a lot of boxes. There's so many different layers, so many procedures have to go through. You know, I see them as an ocean liner, and as a smaller company, you have to be a speedboat. You have to be able to get out there and get ahead of them. When I was setting up, you know, a lot of people have asked before, were you, you know, daunted by the challenges that you were going to face competing against a multinational and all the challenges of an industry that has such deep roots and deep pocketed competitors. But, you know, I'll be honest with you, I didn't have any fear. I was very confident that I knew what I was doing. I had the experience behind me. And I felt personally that I was the best placed person to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are emerging in the fast growing Irish whiskey market. So I've seen so many different failures, so many big drinks companies actually go into the space and make fundamental mistakes. And even, you know, and that sometimes you overestimate what bigger companies, you know, their insights and that they know more than you. Reality is, I knew more than them. You know, it sounds cocky, but I had more insights, and I felt that I knew what was required to be successful, and that's what I did. I'm very passionate about the industry. I'm very passionate about the opportunity. I'm very passionate about what it is for Ireland, and the fact that Irish whiskey will always survive globalization. It has to be made in the islands of Ireland. Can't be made anywhere else in Europe, can't be made anywhere else in the world, it has to be made here. It's uniquely Irish, and there's a great opportunity for Irish whiskey to get somewhere back to where we used to be back in the 19th century, early 20th century, and there's still lots of room to grow. Sometimes you consider yourself kind of Superman in that you can do everything, but in reality, when you're setting up a business, you definitely have your own strengths, and everyone has their own weaknesses, and people draw energy and excitement from different aspects of the business. But reality is, what I found, and what I think a lot of businesses take advantage of is and allows them to scale quite quickly is to build your team early and realize that either you're not strong on finance or you're not strong on production, and you need to bring in the necessary skill sets to do it. And it's easy. You can say that, you can bring them in, but you also have to delegate. So you got to be willing to let go and let them get on with their job. I'm not short on ideas, I'm not short on the marketing and sales side of things, but definitely having that way to offload some of the financial elements, the nuts and bolts of getting a lot of things done, or from the production side of things in terms of suppliers and all that kind of stuff like that. It allowed us to get the business up to speed within 12 months that if I was doing myself, I would have been plodding along for a long time. Yeah, look, I think it's very important as a leader, as an entrepreneur, is you need to walk the walk, and you need to be able to go out there and show your organization and to be the face of the organization. And my name is on the bottle, so Teeling Whiskey is crafted by Jack Teeling. My signature on the bottle, I think, is also important for the brand and for the business. For people to actually meet us. And I suppose that's when I think of other competing brands or people in our space, I like to say is there's probably little chance of you going out to a pub in Dublin and bumping into John Jameson, but there's probably a decent chance that you might bump into Jack Teeling. So it's really kind of, it's important that we help bring the brands to life and for people to realize that it's real, it's authentic. It wasn't created in a marketing lab. It's not an idea of a multinational just to kind of mislead consumers. It's real. And again, if you come to the distillery here, you'll see us in the coffee shop. You see us walking around. So it's as much for our staff as it is for our partners, as it is for consumers, that we are active and involved in the business on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, I was lucky that my year of intake to the Entrepreneur of the Year was in 2017, when it was an anniversary, and encouraged a lot of people to come back that had been associated with the program over the years. And we went to San Francisco and Silicon Valley, and we had an amazing experience. And to be honest with you, it was very intimidating when all of a sudden you see a lot of the pillars of Ireland Inc. In the same bus. What's unusual about it is that entrepreneurs can be very lonely, in that you're on your own, and you can't show weakness, or you don't think you can, you're probably allowed. So to have people who have been through it and have a lot of experience as to use as sounding boards is phenomenal. So it's really exciting, really interesting, and I'm lucky to be part of it. And as you said, looking forward to be able to cultivate more value personally over the next number of years. I definitely feel, the stress and strains of business in general. It's very hard to keep out of family life, because reality is, when you set up your own business, it becomes your life. It's not a 9 to 5. You don't just clock in, you clock out, you live it. When we were building our distillery, And we were a relatively small organization, and there was a lot of challenges around paying for bills that were falling due, growing the business, banking relationships, multiple different things that were going on. And I took it all on myself, and I didn't really want to let the wider organization know. And it was basically myself and our finance manager were kind of trying to manage as much of that stress and strain as possible. And I think, I set up a Teeling Whiskey company when in my mid-30s. At that stage, you think you're invincible. And my view was, if I'm not busy now and working my hind legs off, I never will be. And that was at a stage where I had young kids and everything like that. So it was probably the busiest time in my life, with family life, but also with work life and everything else. So you're working, all 24/7. That was just the way out. And you're up with your kids, young kids, and you're trying to process things at night. In a way, I felt like I was getting to a slightly unhealthy situation, and that I noticed that I was coming to my 40s, and my metabolism, my young metabolism, was no longer there, and I was getting quite heavy, and didn't feel as much energy as possible. And for the last 5-6 years now, I've been running, and probably running more now, and fitter than I've ever been, but definitely I'm more conscious now than I would have been when I set up the business about my own health, decision on what I eat, and so forth, and also how it affects family and work life, and try and encourage that in our own working environment as well, in terms of our own team. We're just finishing off one of these charity steps, miles in months, or things like that, and it's just a great way to, I suppose, do team building exercises, but also do it in a healthy way. And I think it's more and more important for employers, entrepreneurs to be mindful of that, and to look after themselves as much as looking after the business. Because entrepreneurship and building a business, setting up your own business, it's all consuming. It takes up nearly all your life. You really have to do something you like. You really have to have a passion for it, and you have to draw your energy from it. Otherwise, it will break you, and just chances of succeeding are next to nothing. So setting up a business just because you like money and you want to get money out of it, it might work for you, but chances are it won't. But you should do something that you actually do like and can be passionate about it. And that's important for yourself, but it's equally as important for your team, for your organization. It's not all about the salary. It's all about doing something that they can believe in. They mightn't be as passionate as you, but they have to believe in it. And they have to understand why they go in every day, they do their job. They have to understand why, the logic of it. No matter what you are, you could work in our visitor experience here, you could be out merchandising in a retail, you could be off in the US being a brand ambassador there, you could be a distiller there. They all have, they are the face, they are Teeling Whiskey, they embody who we are. And the same with no matter what employee in any organization, and they have to buy into what your culture is, what you mean. What we do, and what I would recommend other people to do, is to celebrate the culture, celebrate the success, and allow people throughout the organization to embrace it. It's interesting in terms of self-motivation and your own targets for when you set up the business. We achieved our, let's say, initial 5-year plan, or what we hope to achieve within the 5 years, which is kind of unusual. Once you've achieved that, it's like, what's next? How do you get yourself, dust yourself off and re-energize yourself to go at it? And I think, again, re-energize your organization to do it. So if you have some big target that you're kind of moving towards, once you achieve that, then you have to be able to reset and go again. And I think where we are now, we want to be known when people think of Irish whiskey, and and they think of, you know, a better Irish whiskey, a more premium Irish whiskey, they think of us. And we want to bring Dublin whiskey and Teeling whiskey back to the top table of global whiskey, and to give the city and the country something that they can be proud of, and anyone who works with there, and hopefully future generations of Teelings, so that when you book a restaurant or you book a hotel, they go, oh yeah, what's your name? Let's say Alison Teeling. You said, oh, like the whiskey. Exactly. So that's where we want to be, and that's I think it's I feel extra ownership, not only for myself but for our family and future generations of Teeling, is that we do a good job, and that's something that they can be proud of and their children can be proud of in generations to come.